Minister, just 4 days ago, and I know you're well aware of this, but just 4 days ago on Sunday the 7th of March, 18 firefighters, 2 civil defence units and the national parks were tackling a large gorse fire at Scarr Mountain in Wicklow. This fire ended up scorching 50 hectares of land designated as Special Area Conservation, which is our national park in Wicklow. These gorse fires are illegal from the 1st of March, and this fire really marked the start of the illegal fire season, which is a cyclical experience that causes untold environmental, human and economic damage, not to mention putting firefighters, the Air Corps and emergency workers at risk time and time again. Last year, a disproportionate number of illegal fires occurred in the Wicklow Mountains National Park, 6 as of June 2020, with one other major fire recorded in Killarney. More than 400 hectares of protected land was destroyed, along with our wildlife. In one area of commonage in the Wicklow Mountains National Park, there have been illegal burns on the same land for 11 years out of a 19-year period up to 2019. This land will take years to recover from an environmental perspective. It may actually never recover. The burns have been so frequent and so intense. But it's not just from an environmental perspective, because that burn also impacted heavily on the air quality in the area, on the headwaters of the Liffey and on the drinking water that fed into Dublin. These illegal fires of this scale also contribute hugely to our CO2 emissions, which we will struggle and do struggle with trying to drive down. And then again, environmentally and from a biodiversity perspective, they are devastating. It can take years for land to recover and for wildlife to recover. They are devastating for wildlife and for bird populations, and according to Birdwatch Ireland, red grouse, windchat and meadow pipit and amber-listed species including skylark and stonechat are most at risk of gorse fires. And of course, any birds that are breeding at the time, their nests, their young, could be burnt, and in fact it will stop them from foraging for food in nearby areas as well. So it is devastating for our wildlife. Minister, my constituents, both urban and rural, are tired of these fires, tired of them happening year in, year out, tired of seeing our firefighters having to fight fires that shouldn't be happening in the first place, tired of the pollution, of the threat to lives and property, of the damage to our wildlife and to our national park. And so this is something that happens, when I was first elected, I spoke about these fires. And we're here again saying the same things, asking the same questions. So we need to tackle it, and we need to tackle it properly. The measures that have been put in place so far are not achieving what we need them to achieve. We can't tolerate these fires anymore, and we need to put huge effort into ensuring that they do not happen. So I recognise that the Minister visited the site this week, and I do welcome that, and thank you for coming to Wicklow to check the actual land out. But we do need to see tangible action. So Minister, I just want to know, what tangible actions are you taking to ensure that these fires are stopped once and for all? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Whitmore. Minister Noonan, thank you for being here.
Yes, I have to say, I did visit the National Park this week and met with Wesley Atkinson and Hugh McLindon, two of the National Parks team that you know well there, and I witnessed firsthand very significant damage to the habitat there. It was really quite disturbing to see it, and to see it at that close level. At this point, I just want to thank our team, the National Parks and Wildlife Service, to thank the fire services, Garda Síochána, Civil Defence, and all who worked to tackle this blaze and are continuing to work throughout the country, because similar fires took place in the Slieve Blooms and on Brandon Hill as well in my own county. These wildfires don't occur naturally in Ireland. The main cause of such conflagrations is thought to be deliberate starting of fires, without concern for the emergency services, wildlife, habitats, communities or even private property close by. Important upland habitats are destroyed, with local wildlife potentially killed or displaced at a critical time of year for many species. These sites are special areas of conservation, as has been said, and among the most precious places in Ireland for nature, and home to thriving populations of rare bird species. Setting these fires is absolutely criminal and an all too frequent tragedy. These fires impact on water quality, on soil stability, on climate and on human health. As the Deputy will appreciate, Wicklow Mountains National Park on its own comprises over 20,000 hectares, so it's very difficult to provide a visible presence on the ground to discourage and prevent unauthorised burning in the countryside. Equally, trying to identify culprits, those who deliberately set fires in open areas without concern for the consequences, can be difficult. And you made that case of an area that's been, same area has been burnt 11 times. It's very, very, very difficult. In the last week, the MPWS has deployed increased fire patrols at our sites and remains in close liaison with both Gardaí and fire services. These patrols have targeted known high-risk fire areas. Where appropriate, the cross-compliance is pursued with the Department of Agriculture and Food and Marine. My staff are committed to finding solutions to these fires, and I call on all stakeholders, including the local communities, to work with us to find a way forward. Where evidence is forthcoming, we will pursue appropriate enforcement under the Wildlife Act or other legislation. Section 40 of the Wildlife Act 1976 to 2012 prohibits the cutting, grubbing, burning or destruction of vegetation with certain strict exemptions from the 1st of March to the 31st of August during nesting and breeding seasons for birds and wildlife. Burning of vegetation on uncultivated land is prohibited without exception during these dates. These fires are criminal and frequently end in tragedy. Considerable interagency efforts have been made to reduce the incidence of wildland fires, led by my colleague, the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Marine, whose department monitors conditions and issues wildland fire warning notices. That department has led interagency reviews with a view to enhancing mitigation of wildland fires. The main challenge here is to encourage members of the public, including landowners, farmers and recreational owners of publicly accessible land, to act responsibly at all times, to be mindful of their own safety and the safety of others, to be mindful of the need to protect property, both publicly owned and privately owned, to appreciate the value of our natural heritage, particularly in our national parks, nature reserves and designated Natura 2000 sites. I would appeal to all members of the public to be conscious of the danger posed by fire, any fire, but particularly a fire on open ground, which can very quickly get out of control. We have all seen how homes and lives can be threatened, and we have seen also the damage to landscape and to valuable habitats caused by uncontrolled fires. Largely, it is a question of individuals being more responsible about actions that they take and being mindful of the potential damage to life, private property and public property caused by these carelessly setting of these fires.
Thank you, Minister Noonan. Deputy Whitmore.
Thank you, Minister. And I recognise that, and I welcome the fact that national parks are being tasked with more intensive targeted measures. But unfortunately, it seems to me like it's more of the same. That each year this happens, and each year there's calls for more penalties or for greater investigations, but each year it just keeps on happening. And I think what we need to have is a complete rethink and a relook at how we're managing it, because the solutions that have been put in place aren't actually, they're not working, right? They're not working at all. And I think fundamentally the problem comes down to the fact that we're talking about a national park, an area that is one of our few protected areas in the country, and we don't even have a management plan for it. We don't have a plan that says that biodiversity protection is its #1 priority in this area. So I think that's key, and I think that's needed. None of our national parks have management plans, and I think it's a derogation of our duties really not to have those in place. I think the second thing that we need to be looking at is, why are people burning? Because, people know it's not a good thing to do. They know it's not good for the land. They know it's not good for their neighbours. They know it's not good for firefighters coming in and having to put this out. So why are they burning? And they're burning because the policies of the Department of Agriculture over years and years are incentivising them to burn. They've identified land that's deemed marginal, that's deemed scrubby, and they won't give payments out on land that's in that condition. So we're essentially saying to farmers, if you want a payment for that land, you need to make it productive. We need to flip that on its head, and we need to make sure the farmers are paid to protect our land, that we value what they're doing in protecting our biodiversity and protecting our environment, our soils, our trees, we need to rethink and completely flip what we're doing on its head, because what we're doing isn't working. We need to work with farmers, with local communities, and actually put measures in place that will work. So, Minister, I would ask, will you get a task force between the Department of Agriculture, your own department and the Department of Environment to relook at how this is happening, and actually work with the farming community and the ecologists and the local communities to make sure that measures that will work and achieve our aims are put in place? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, to conclude.
Again, thanks to Deputy Whitmore. And just in terms of reassurance, I think it's important to note that significant conversations are taking place in relation to the next CAP strategic plan, looking at results-based payments for Natura 2000 sites and for SPAs and SSCs. So those conversations are ongoing, and I think it is fair to say that there has been significant increase in investment, both in our national parks and our nature reserves. We are employing additional park rangers throughout the country, ecologists. So I think there's a significant challenge there, but I think that challenge has been met by government acting to try and respond. And certainly from the conversations I would have had with the rangers on the ground there on Tuesdays is that it is notoriously difficult to get prosecutions and to catch people in these situations. But the increased patrols, the use of drone footage, the use of technology to help in that regard is something that we are using and deploying at all times, along with the additional work with the fire services. So I certainly would give my assurance that in specific relation to these incidents, our department, MPWS, the Department of Agriculture, Food and Marine, are working closely together to try and tackle the root cause of it. You're absolutely correct in terms of the eligibility around farm payments. It's not the case. I think the Department of Agriculture has been clear that clearing lands of scrub will not mean a conditionality of additional payments the following year. So, I think they're being clear in their messages to landowners too. And just in the final seconds I have left, it's important too, as we enter into hopefully an opening up of the country in coming months, that everybody behaves responsibly around our uplands, our nature reserves and our national parks, because they are a huge asset and have proven to be a huge asset to us over the past year in particular. So we certainly will give our assurances that we will do all we can to try and eliminate this problem.